Because after a shock poll put Labour 27 points clear of the Conservatives, Keir Starmer is clearly feeling he's had quite a good week. He's now set to start those secretive talks with the civil service to bolster his party's plans for government. Now, they're called Access Talks, and they were authorised by Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister, earlier this month, and will be coordinated by the UK's top official, Cabinet Secretary Simon Case. Civil servants have been told not to be too gung-ho and give the impression that a Labour victory is inevitable, with the first meetings expected within a fortnight. Now, this comes as Keir Starmer has appeared to drop his £28 billion green investment pledge after it was not included in Labour's new 24-page campaigning Bible. And, of course, that environmental policy, the sort of green Bidenomics that they're copying from America, would have been the central thing that the Labour front bench would have wanted to talk to civil servants about, because it was certainly the most complicated bit of Labour manifesto. So if that has been dropped, that is really interesting. But I've always been fascinated by these access talks that happen in the run-up to a general election, because the way our system works is so bonkers that, we all know on the day of the election, the old Prime Minister, his removal van turns up, leaves Downing Street, the new one comes in and starts fitting, the windows for curtains. That's the sort of fun bit. But actually behind the scenes, the real politics of, running the country, all the ministers leave and the new ministers walk in and they don't really know what on earth they're doing. So actually these access talks, which are all for the opposition to tell the civil service what they'll be expecting on day one, they are really important because the running of the country depends on it.
But you're saying it's a bonkers system. I mean, surely it's a much better system than everybody out at the same time, and you wouldn't want the civil servants to actually move out at the same. Yeah. You want them almost to kind of grease the wheels. No, there's
from
no
one
handover.
administration to another.
But except that's why these are there, aren't they? Just so that they say, right, this is the way we'll be working. We'll be sort of doing that. We're kind of slightly smoothing over to that. This is unlikely to happen. I mean, I think that this sort of, it's a bit like watching Traitors, isn't it? You can kind of go, oh, I wonder what's...
Stop plugging it.
No, but you know what I mean about the final, what's going on behind the scenes and who knows what. And will they... I know it's
bit of that thrown in as well. I mean, I think that, all of it obscures this lack of sort of policy or emphasis on policy. I think the one thing that's interesting about Labour is they can shuffle closer and closer to power without really being scrutinised yet. Yeah. I mean, this non-dom thing, it's incredible how many times they've spent this money, which is of an indeterminate value. The super rich don't then hang around and go, yeah, tax me again and again. It's not really super rich behaviour. And it sort of reminds me of, like when you see like a contestant on a game show and they go, what are you going to spend the money on? It's a good sum, they say 12 grand. And they'll go, a wedding in the Bahamas, a new house, a new car. You spent it 3 times already. That is way more than you're going to win. But this is the problem with the Conservatives constantly being at war with themselves, is that we're not getting what we really need as a democracy, is scrutiny and focus on the alternative.
It does feel pretty rich of Starmer to be having these access talks. I know they're normal part of it, but they feel quite early. It's almost, when I read it, it almost felt like Sunak was kind of admitting defeat, the fact that Labour are starting now. But also, will this focus Keir Starmer's mind a bit and give us some policies? Because he's now, you turned on his green pledges. What else is he going to talk to the civil service
But he's not going to come out with that until he actually has to, because he doesn't want them stealing.
Could we have a few policies?
What are
we going to vote for?
With the green investment, normally I'd slam Starmer for this, and I don't like him. But this actually is a good thing, because as we've seen in Port Talbot, 3,000 jobs lost because Tata Steel are trying to get more net zero, or reach net zero. The more we try and get to net zero, the more jobs are going to be lost in certain areas and communities where...
But that's why you've got to create new jobs.
Yes, but we've lost 3,000 jobs in Port Talbot. Those new jobs are not going to come tomorrow. So immediately we've got 3,000 people out of work in an area which relied solely on the steel trade. So I'm OK with him getting rid of this pledge if it means we're going to secure jobs for people still.
Net zero is meaningless anyway. It doesn't actually mean anything, and
well, I think
they are both compatible. You can invest in renewables, and you can also continue with industries that are thriving.
And also the other problem is that things like, for example, we will be the only country, I think, the only Western country that will no longer be able to actually make steel from scratch. I mean, we'll be able to make steel from other bits of steel, but we won't be able to make steel from scratch.
Yeah.
The other thing is that at the moment, we still have a very febrile atmosphere around oil, which still constitutes so much of our energy. And we need to actually concentrate more on actually being a bit more self-sufficient before we actually go into those other things. Right. But you're right, they need to actually get something in there first before they actually get rid of something. That's the problem, and they never do. We never think ahead.